So I became interested in this topic largely through my everyday experience. Psychology, at its best, shines a spotlight or a flashlight on everyday experience and makes you understand it in a different way or see it in a different way than you would have otherwise without psychological science. And the topic that we study in our research is mind reading. How is it that I think about your thoughts, feelings, and inner mental states? And we're also interested in how accurately people do that. So my research investigates impression detection, how well you can intuit the impression that you're conveying to other people. Much of our everyday lives, we wonder and worry about whether we're conveying the right kind of impression to another person, whether we've just said something interesting that somebody else liked or said something stupid that cast an unfavorable impression of us to another person. And we study how accurately people do this. If people do this poorly, if, for instance, I tend to overestimate how harshly I'm being judged by others, then I will experience all kinds of social anxiety that I shouldn't. Well, one of the things that surprised us was, frankly, just how bad people are at this. So take a very simple judgment that we do with great regularity. I'm trying to guess how attractive you will find me, or how likable you will find me. People are often not markedly better than you'd expect by chance alone at this, which is somewhat surprising. You would think that over our lifetimes we would acquire a sense of how we're doing out there on the social market in terms of our personality, in terms of our attractiveness, and sometimes that's true, but we're certainly nowhere near as good as we might think we are at this. And that was somewhat surprising to see actually in our own data. We knew this from other research as well, but it was surprising in our own data to see in judgments of attractiveness, say, how attractive you'll rate me, how little anticipated judgments correlated with actual judgments. So in our research, what we did was try to see how you can improve people's impression detection, how I can improve my ability to intuit the kind of impression that I'm conveying to you. And the key problem, the key hindrance we have in intuiting the impression we convey to other people is that we just know too much about ourselves. We live with ourselves from one moment to the next, over time, across situations. I know that, for instance, I'm dressed better today than I was yesterday. That knowledge gives me a frame of reference that observers often don't have. You don't know that I was wearing tank tops and sandals yesterday. I do. If I think that I'm looking much better today than I was yesterday because of that comparison effect, and I think that you're going to see me the same way, I'm going to be wrong. If, however, I looked really sharp yesterday and I look terrible today, I'm going to underestimate how desirable I'm going to look to you because you don't have that information. The larger implications for the findings cut across many different levels. So at the low level within psychological science, the other minds problem is a major one. It's a major one in everyday life. We can't see other people's mental states. We infer them in some meaningful way. This is a line of research that tries to figure out how to bridge or how to solve this problem that's been recognized for several thousand years now. Outside of psychological science and everyday life, what I think this helps to do is solve some of the unfortunate mismatches we have between how we think we're being judged and how we're actually being judged. So on the negative side of the spectrum, the teenager who thinks that he's cast a pallid shadow over the rest of his entire life because of this one minor mishap and does so inaccurately, we're hoping that this might help that person achieve a more accurate assessment of how they're being viewed by other people. On the other side, the narcissist who thinks he's loved or she's loved by everyone in the world, hopefully this will calibrate that person a little bit and give them a more accurate assessment of how they're actually seen by other people in social life. Having an accurate ability or accurately being able to step into the mind of another person enables effective social interaction in a way that having a mismatch doesn't. So we're continuing to extend this in a number of different ways. One of the things that we're doing on this line of research specifically is kind of looking at the opposite side of this. So just as we often wonder what other people think of us and we try to manage our behavior so that we cast the right kind of impression or convey the right kind of impression to other people, so too do we often wonder about what another person thinks of him or herself. I wonder whether my students, for instance, are happy about the work they're doing. Are they satisfied? Are they happy with the kind of research that they're doing? I wonder whether my students think they're really learning a lot in this particular class. Those kinds of self-evaluations are a very different kind of impression that you're trying to detect. It's not somebody else's thought about you, it's what another person thinks about him or herself, or his or her experience. Other people evaluate themselves through a low-level microscope, and that means that bridging that other mind's problem requires you to think about low-level details. What kind of moment-to-moment experience is my student likely to be having in class that will allow me to assess whether they think they're getting a lot out of this experience or not? That is, allow me to accurately assess whether they're getting a lot out of their experience or not. So we're looking to see, can we help people anticipate self-evaluations? And that is going to require slightly different tools, but I think we've got some mechanisms here that allow us some insight into how you might bridge that particular other mind's problem. That's the main extension from this particular line of work.